All right, we are live here on the official Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, obviously, but we are live here on the channel for the second time, doing a stream, and as you can tell by the title of the video, we got a lot to cover. We'll get to that in just a moment, but I wanted to wait for you guys to join this stream. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody is having a awesome day here on this Monday, March the 24th of 2025. And hope everybody's had a great day as well. I'm just going to wait for everybody to join this stream. I'm going to give a few minutes. But we do got a lot to cover here. We had March Madness, of course, starting up last week. It began after St. Patrick's Day, March the 18th, with the first four games on that Tuesday, March the 18th from last week. And there was just so many stuff going on, of course, with March Madness. We also had the first round games begin on that Thursday. Then to Friday, and then the 32 games, we had them on Saturday and Sunday, so that's what we're going to be covering here on this stream. And we'll also take a look at who the teams, we'll take a look at all the teams that have been eliminated from the tournament, and we'll also go through we'll take a look at the Sweet 16 matchups that are coming up on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I wouldn't say Saturday and Sunday because those are going to be the Elite Eight games. And then we'll have the Final Four coming up next week on April the 4th, I believe. So, yeah, we're right around the corner until we get to the Final Four in San Antonio. So, yeah, we're going to be pretty much covering, all the final scores from the games, from the first four all the way to the round of 32. And then we'll preview these Sweet 16 matchups. And also, how did your guys' bracket do? Let me know in the chat. And go ahead and hit that subscribe. And also like this stream if you are in it right now. Tell me how your bracket did. What was your biggest mistake in this bracket? Who'd you have as a Cinderella team? Of course, there weren't a lot of Cinderella teams. I'll get to that in, a little bit later on, but again, also catch my college football content. I posted a video earlier around 3 o'clock Eastern time. Still doing those schedule previews and very early projected record series. Just be sure to go back and check those out. You can watch them in a playlist as well. We've done I believe now 52 teams, maybe 53. I think about 52. So we have been busy with that ever since January until after the national championship game was over for football. But I thought, why not do a little bit of basketball content as well? All right, so we're going to now go ahead and go through the final scores from all the first round games, the round of 64, and the round of 32. And, we're going to take a look at these scores. So let's pull that up here. So, again, March Madness did begin. We did a live show of the selection Sunday and gave my thoughts about it. You can go back and watch that previous stream if you have not seen it yet. So the official tournament began with the first four games. The first four games don't really matter, but I wanted to go ahead and cover those a little bit as well just to give them credit. So St. Francis University and Alabama State, they got us started, last week, March the 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day. And Alabama State defeated St. Francis University on a last-second shot with a few seconds to go. They defeated them 70-68. So, yeah, that was a great start to March Madness there between those two teams. The winner of that game was going to be the 16th seed in the South region to play Auburn. So, yeah, Alabama State got the victory 70-68. The other first four game on that Tuesday was North Carolina defeating San Diego State 95-68. Boy, yeah, 95-68. North Carolina with an absolute beatdown on San Diego State. I don't know what happened to San Diego State in this game. I don't know if they were just nervous. And this is a San Diego State team that not too long ago, a couple years ago, they were in the national championship game. So I don't understand what happened here for San Diego State. Yeah, they got blown out by North Carolina. And I know there was a lot of criticism that North Carolina definitely should have not been in the tournament, but it is what it is. You know, I think it's just name brand bias, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess it's just that's just how it works in college sports. It's just name brand bias. So yeah, those were the two first four games that we had on Tuesday, March the 18th. Moving on to the Wednesday games, we had Mount St. Mary's defeat American 83-72. So a pretty good win there for Mount St. Mary's. And then the other first four game on that Wednesday night was Xavier defeated Texas 86-80. So yeah, a pretty close game there between those two teams. Xavier, we heard a story that their coach is going to become the next Texas coach. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's really interesting that Texas is hiring, the coach that defeated their team in this first four game in order to get to the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed. Yeah, that's very interesting, but maybe I wasn't too surprised that Texas's coach got fired. I mean, there's been a lot of coaching changes, which we'll get to here in just a moment on this stream. But yeah, Xavier defeated Texas 86-80 in that other first four game. That was to determine who's going to be the number 11 seed in the Midwest region. And then in the other first four, that was going to determine the 16 seed in the East region. The winner would play Duke. So yeah, those two games kind of decided who would be that 16 and number 11 seed. And then for, North Carolina and San Diego State, I forgot to mention that. The winner of that game was going to play Ole Miss in that region. I think it's like the South region as well. Or not the South region. Yeah, the South region. Yeah, that's where it decided as well. So, yeah, a couple of teams in the South region had to decide who was going to be the 16 seed and the 11 seed. So, yeah, that was what decided both of those games. But, yeah, that's a look at the first four final scores from this past week on Tuesday and Wednesday, March the 18th and the 19th. Then we go to the real games. The round of 64, the first day of the tournament, we had 16 games. And, it was a busy one. 16 games in the tournament on Thursday and Friday. We'll start with those Thursday games, March the 20th. We had Creighton defeat Louisville 89-75. I know a lot of Louisville fans were complaining about getting a number 8 seed, which I didn't really have a problem with it. It was just a bad spot for them because, Creighton is a really solid team out of the Big East and everything. So that was probably not a good draw there for this, Louisville team. But it is what it is. But they did lose 89-75. But you got to give a lot of credit to Pat Kelsey, first-year head coach for Louisville, the coach of the year in the ACC, led this Louisville team to 20-plus wins, and then runner-ups in the ACC championship to the Duke Blue Devils. So, yeah, Louisville, the future is looking bright for them at that university. I'm really glad as a Kentucky fan. As you see, I'm wearing it on my shirt here. I'm kind of glad for Louisville because, they've been through so much as a program ever since Rick Pitino left. They've had some coaching changes and, they had a coach get fired. But once Pat Kelsey came in, I had no idea what he was like. He was coming from a Charleston program that made it to the NCAA tournament the year before, so maybe it was a good hire. We'll see how he does in his second year next year. But, yeah, he was the ACC Coach of the Year this season. So that is a really good accomplishment there for this Louisville team. All right, so now we go to the next games. In the Midwest region, we had Purdue and High Point. Purdue defeated High Point 75-63. A lot of people predicted that High Point would upset Purdue in this game, which I did not pick that to be an upset. First off, we didn't have a lot of 13 seeds upset a number 4 seed. There was no upsets there, which I'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, Purdue defeated High Point 75-63. High Point kept this game a little bit closer. When you look at the score and everything, it was close of a game, for the most part. But then in the late part of the game, Purdue just had to pull away from them. So yeah, Purdue got the win 75-63 over High Point. Wisconsin defeated Montana 85-66. Not much to talk about that game. Houston defeated SIU Edwardsville 78-40. So yeah, dominant win there for Houston. Auburn defeated Alabama State 83-63. In the first half, Auburn kind of, kept the game close for Alabama State, but they really responded pretty well in the second half. So yeah, Auburn definitely responded pretty well in the second half. They did pull away, and they were able to win by 20 points. Now, in the Midwest region, we did see a 12 seed upset a number 5 seed, and it was McNeese upsetting Clemson 69-67. That was probably the only biggest upset that we saw over, March Madness and everything. Maybe I wouldn't call it an upset, though, because, if you look at this score, yeah, it was a close game. Clemson nearly came back and beat this McNeese team, but, McNeese, they held Clemson to like 13 points in the first half. Yeah, 13 points in the first half. That's just crazy. That's just crazy to hell. It's really, just crazy to hold a Power 4 team to like, to 13 points in the first half. That's unbelievable. But you look at Clemson again, they nearly came back in this game, but it wasn't enough. And for a funny fact, I had Clemson going to the Sweet 16. Yeah, that was a bad pick on my part, which I'll show you my updated bracket a little bit later on. But yeah, Clemson losing to McNeese there 69-67. BYU defeated VCU 80-71 in the first round of the East region. Gonzaga defeated Georgia. Boy, this was not even a close game at all. Gonzaga defeated Georgia 89-68. You look at how the game started, for Gonzaga, they were just fired up. They were playing good defense. And I knew Georgia was not going to win this game. It was really going to be a tough time for them, to win this game. Gonzaga is just a very talented team. Now, they may not have the talent like some of these, really good teams in the country, like Duke, for example, but they do got some talented players, but they do got some really good coaching staff. So, yeah, Gonzaga just put a whooping on Georgia, 89-68. Tennessee defeated Wofford 77-62. So Tennessee did about what I expected to do in the first half. Then we had a Hall of Fame coaching battle, Arkansas and Kansas. Yeah, the two teams there, but we had two Hall of Fame coaches. You had Bill Self and then also John Calipari. Meeting for the first time in a tournament game in quite a while. I think the last time they met in a tournament game was actually the national championship game in like 2012. Where Kentucky, of course, defeated, Bill Self's Kansas team like 69, I think it was actually 67-59, if I'm not mistaken, that year in 2012. But yeah, Arkansas defeated Kansas 79-72. I had Kansas winning this game, but I feel like we figured out that the Jayhawks are definitely overrated. This team was preseason number 1. If you go back to the top 25 rankings from the preseason, this team was ranked number 1 in the preseason, and they had Hunter Dickinson coming back for another year. You feel like the Jayhawks were the favorite to win the national title, but yeah, that was not the case. Arkansas played pretty well in this game. I wouldn't really say Kansas was bad here in this one, but it just really, when they got that number 7 seed, I knew they were not going to, I knew they were going to try to win a few games, but yeah, to have to lose in the first round, that's really not going to get it done here for the Jayhawks. So they did lose to Arkansas 79-72, which I'll talk about Arkansas later on as being like a Cinderella team. Texas A&M defeated Yale 80-71, and then there was another upset here, but this time in the West region, it was Drake upsetting Missouri Now, I wasn't shocked that Drake defeated Missouri, to be honest. Missouri is a team that's very well coached, but this is a veteran, experienced Drake team. They had a lot of experience. I know they were 0-3 in NCAA tournament first round games, but they finally got a win. They kind of prove a lot of people wrong, not including myself, because I had Drake winning this game. So I wasn't too shocked that Drake did beat Missouri here. Drake, obviously, if they did not, maybe finish the game correctly, then Missouri probably would have come back in this game. But yeah, Drake defeated Missouri. This was like the big upset here in the West region. An 11 seed taking down a number 6 seed, 67-57. UCLA defeating Utah State 72-47. That one did surprise me a lot. UCLA, I really didn't know much about them because I haven't watched a lot of UCLA basketball this year. So yeah, UCLA did surprise me. They came in there really aggressive and they blew out Utah State 72-47. St. John's defeated Omaha 83-53. A little bit of a little bit of a slow start for St. John's in that first few minutes of that game, but then they pulled away. So yeah, St. John's got the win over Omaha 83-53. Michigan defeated UC San Diego 68-65. This was a close game for the Wolverines, but Michigan was able to survive this one in order to avoid an upset. And again, there was a lot of 12 seeds upsetting the number 5 seed, which we'll have 2 more later on. But Michigan, they did survive here. And I think a lot of people were doubting Michigan going into this game. UC San Diego is a great team. I mean, it kind of showed you here in this game, but it was still a win for Michigan, the Big Ten champions, of course, of that conference. So yeah, Michigan, we already know they're in the Sweet 16, which I'll get to later on. And then Texas Tech in the final game defeated UNC Wilmington 82-72. Kind of a close game there for Texas Tech for quite a bit, but they were able to pull away. So yeah, the Red Raiders get the win there 82-72. So that's all the final scores from the Thursday games. And then we move on to Friday. Let me check the chat real quick and see how y'all are doing. Again, what did you think about the first round of the tournament? Was it competitive, or was it just the top seeds winning? Some top 4 teams, of course, definitely, won their games. They did about what everybody expected them to do. But, this first round maybe just wasn't really competitive. This is probably the least competitive first round that we've seen in March Madness in quite a while. But there were some upsets here and there. I'll get to those in just a moment, but let's now move on to the Friday games on March the 21st. Starting with Baylor and Mississippi State. Baylor defeating Mississippi State in that 9 versus 8 matchup, 75-72. I did pick Mississippi State to win this game. I didn't really watch a lot of Baylor basketball this year, and I just feel like Mississippi State's coaching staff had a little bit of an advantage here. They're just really well coached, but Scott Drew just continues to prove us wrong in these big games here in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, Baylor, they defeated Mississippi State 75-72. Alabama beat Robert Morris 90-81. If you watch this game, you feel like Alabama definitely could have played better. I think they definitely could have played better, to be honest, but they were able to win it nonetheless. But Alabama just had a pretty tough time with Robert Morris in this game. And Robert Morris definitely does look like a pretty big threat in this tournament, but Alabama was able to beat them. So a win's a win for the Crimson Tide at the end of the day. They were able to escape with a win 90-81. Iowa State defeated Lipscomb 82-55. A pretty easy win there for the Cyclones. This was another upset here in the West region. We had the 12 seed, of course, upsetting a number 5 seed. That was Colorado State taking down Memphis. I actually had Memphis going into the Sweet 16. That was also a bad pick, in my opinion. I trusted Penny Hardaway a lot here for Memphis going into this game, but, Colorado State proved me wrong. This looks like that was the second upset to happen here, of course, in these first-round games. Duke took care of business against Mount St. Mary's, the winner of that first 4 game against American University, 93-49. Cooper Flagg, of course, returning from injury. And I think in the NCAA tournament he would be fully healthy. I think that was a really good move on his part. So The Blue Devils, they got their full roster loaded. They look like the dangerous team in the NCAA tournament. St. Mary's defeated Vanderbilt in a close game, 59-56 in this East first-round matchup. And I was really close to picking Vanderbilt to win this game because it's an SEC team, and I feel like St. Mary's was just not on the level of an SEC team. But they came in there and proved me wrong, but I did choose St. Mary's at the end of the day to win this game. So St. Mary's defeating Vanderbilt 59-56. Ole Miss defeating North Carolina 71-64. Mentioned the Tar Heels earlier, the winner of that first four game against San Diego State, 95-68. Boy, you look at this score here. Ole Miss got off to a really good start. They had a comfortable lead going into halftime, but the second half, North Carolina nearly came back in this game, so I wasn't too shocked that the score at the end of the day was really close, but the Rebels did prove me wrong here. I had North Carolina winning this game, and yeah, Ole Miss definitely proved me wrong here. They beat North Carolina 71-64. Maryland defeated Grand Canyon 81-49. A lot of people were picking Grand Canyon to win this game, but I think this is a very underrated Maryland team. They look like a really good team, and we know they're heading to the Sweet 16 already. Florida defeated Norfolk State 95-69. Kentucky defeated Troy 76-57. Kentucky in the first half, they had a pretty tough time with this Troy team. Second half, though, their defense really paid off, and they were able to force Troy to shoot the ball and everything. They were also forcing them to shoot like threes, and they also played, again, aggressive. Troy 76-57. It's the first time that Kentucky has been able to get a first-round win in the NCAA tournament for quite a while. So yeah, Kentucky fans definitely kind of feel relieved after beating Troy in that first round game. Here was another upset, but I wouldn't really call it an upset. New Mexico upsetting Marquette here. I forget Richard Pitino is still coaching out there in college basketball, and he's with New Mexico. I forget he's there as well. New Mexico defeated Marquette 75-66, so maybe I wasn't shocked here that New Mexico won, but I did pick Marquette to win this game because Marquette is a team that I do trust a lot more than New Mexico, but I just did forget that Richard Pitino was still there at New Mexico. So the Lobos get the win over Marquette 75-66. Arizona defeated Akron 93-65, took care of business there. Then UConn defeated Oklahoma, a pretty solid Oklahoma team that can give teams some problems. But yeah, the Huskies, the two-time reigning national champions, they defeated Oklahoma 67-59. Xavier lost to Illinois 86-73. Xavier did give Illinois a little bit of a close game there in the first half, but second half with a few minutes to go, Illinois just had to pull away in this game. So the Fighting Illini get the win 86-73. Michigan State defeated Bryant 87-62. So Michigan State, they've had their fair share of getting upsetted in the first round of a number 15 seed over the years under Tom Izzo, but they're definitely now on a run. So yeah, Michigan State definitely deserves this win because they've been through so much as well. Now, the final game was Oregon and Liberty, and this was definitely a bad pick for me. I had Liberty as a Cinderella team, but they got blown out by Oregon, 81-52. So, yeah, I did not expect that one to happen. All these first-round games, some of them were close, and then some of them were not close. The top four teams, in the first round looked like they took care of business. Maybe not Purdue, though, because Purdue definitely didn't have, a great win. It was a 13-point win, but that's not a great win in my opinion. But, yeah, Duke had a dominant win, and same thing with Houston. They also had a dominant win. So this first round of the March Madness tournament, I feel like was not even competitive at all. Now, we did see some really close games that maybe could have come down to the wire, but when it just really came down to the wire, it seemed like, just teams were pulling away at that time. So, yeah, Kentucky, they kind of had to pull away from Troy, and then same thing with Auburn. They had to kind of pull away from Alabama State. And maybe some other teams had to do that as well. Like Alabama, for example, they had a pretty tough time against Robert Morris, but yeah, some of these teams were just able to pull away, and that kind of created not a really competitive first round of March Madness. So yeah, kind of disappointing, to be honest, if you're a March Madness fan, because you didn't really get that big upset. Again, we saw a couple or maybe like 3 12 seeds. We saw a number 11 seed upset, Missouri, and that was Drake, so that was the only number 11 seed to like do that upset. And then we had a couple of 12 seeds defeat like number 5 teams. We had McNeese upsetting Clemson, and I was shocked about that one. I didn't know how good McNeese was, but they definitely looked like a really good team. And then, the other upset was Colorado State upsetting Memphis. I was also pretty shocked about that one, but maybe not shocked at the same time that maybe Memphis lost this game. But yeah, those were only the upsets that happened. 3 upsets on it. So yeah, that's just crazy that we don't really particularly see, we particularly see like a lot of upsets in the first round, but that just didn't quite happen here in the first round of the tournament. So what were your guys' thoughts on the first round? What was the best game? And then also, what do you think was the biggest upset out of those 3? In my opinion, I was kind of surprised that Memphis lost. That was probably my biggest surprise there. Maybe, but maybe it's also, I don't think Drake in, Missouri is a surprise, because I had Drake upsetting Missouri in that first round. But maybe, maybe Memphis was definitely the biggest surprise in my opinion. I just don't know. It's kind of hard to say because there weren't a lot of upsets. But which upset do you think was the most, shocking? Like, I wouldn't really say it's a shock, but yeah, I think, all those games were just not typically upsets at all. All right, so we move on now to the round of 32 games that were held on Saturday and Sunday, March the 22nd and the 23rd. We'll start with Purdue and McNeese. Purdue does end McNeese's Cinderella run a little bit early, 76-62. Purdue about what I expected them to do. They got off to a really fast start. I mean, the score did look like it was close at the end of the day, but the Boilermakers did dominate this game. And yeah, Purdue kind of, set a statement here that they are definitely still a national championship contender. McNeese, though, on the other side, their coach is now going to become the new head coach at NC State. Again, I mentioned a lot of, coaching changes, throughout the country and everything. Xavier's coach is going to Texas, and now you got McNeese's coach going to NC State. So, yeah, a lot of interesting storylines here going into the offseason already, even though the tournament is still going on. Arkansas defeated St. John's 75-66, so we had another Hall of Fame coaching battle here between Rick Pitino and Calipari. These two guys, of course, used to be at Louisville and Kentucky. Calipari used to be at Kentucky. He was there for 15 years, and then Rick Pitino was there at Louisville for, similar years, to Calipari as well. But yeah, it looked like St. John's was not ready to go in this game. St. John's shot, I believe, 20-something% from the field. Calipari, I just feel like he studied, Rick Pitino a lot. And look, Calipari knows about Rick Pitino a lot. This is the 5th time that they've gone in a tournament battle. Rick Pitino dominated the early part of the series, but then Calipari's dominated it as of late, including those regular season games back when he was at Kentucky, and then, of course, when Rick Pitino was at Louisville. So, yeah, Calipari has really dominated Rick Pitino in terms of the coaching rivalry and stuff. They say they're not friends in real life, which I think that's definitely not true. But yeah, Arkansas was definitely the better team. St. John's, I feel like the nerves got to them a little bit, playing like a really good school and everything. So yeah, I wasn't shocked that Arkansas won this game, but at the same time, Arkansas definitely was the better team, and they were definitely the more faster team as well. So yeah, St. John's, I had them going to the Sweet 16, but their season does come down to an end in the second round. So yeah, Arkansas is that Cinderella team. They are the number 10 seed, so that is the only double-digit seed to go on to the Sweet 16. Michigan defeated Texas A&M 91-79. Wasn't surprised that Michigan won this game. Texas A&M is a really well-coached team, but yeah, I expected Michigan to come out really focused in this game because UC San Diego, they kind of didn't have a great game there, so they kind of want to redeem themselves of having a good game against the Aggies, and that's exactly what they did. This game was really close throughout the entire day, but Michigan was able to pull away late, and Michigan gets the win 91-79. Drake's Cinderella story also comes down to win. They lost at Texas Tech 77-64, and another coaching change here. Drake's coach is going to be the next head coach at the Iowa Hawkeyes. So yeah, 3 coaches will definitely be going to the Power 4 level now. You got the Drake coach going to Iowa, just like I mentioned. You got the McNeese coach going to NC State. And then I talked about it earlier, Xavier's coach going to Texas. So yeah, a lot of 3 big changes there for the coaching changes here for the entire offseason already for college basketball. So yeah, Texas Tech defeating Drake there 77-64. Auburn defeated Creighton 82-70. Now, Auburn was in a tough battle there in the first half. I believe it was like 37-35 at halftime. And then by probably like 10 minutes to go in this game, Auburn definitely kind of pulled away late here in this one. So, yeah, Auburn definitely kind of proved that they're still a team to beat in this tournament. But, Creighton is a solid team. I got to give them credit for at least competing in this game. But, yeah, Auburn 82, Creighton 70 in this one. This was probably the best game of the round of 32 on this Saturday. BYU defeating Wisconsin 91-89. So a really good game there between the Big 12 and the Big 10. Wisconsin obviously the runner-ups in the Big 10 championship. I obviously had, BYU, defeating Wisconsin in the second round, and they actually did that. So, yeah, the Cougars advanced to the Sweet 16. BYU seems like they're not missing Mark Pope at all. So, yeah, that's really a good sign to see the Cougars that are still good, even without Mark Pope as their head coach. So, yeah, BYU does advance. They defeated Wisconsin 91-89. And, again, I think this was the best game of the round of 32 on that Saturday. Houston defeated Gonzaga 81-76. The Cougars eliminated Gonzaga pretty early from this tournament. A lot of people were kind of worried that Gonzaga was going to at least get to the Sweet 16, but I wasn't all that concerned about Houston going up against Gonzaga. I mean, I'll admit it, for the most part in the first half, I thought they were going to definitely, probably choke in this one, but they were still able to edge Gonzaga 81-76, so a 7-point win there for the Cougars. They are in the Sweet 16. And then the final game on Saturday, we had 8 games on Saturday and then 8 games on Sunday. Tennessee did defeat UCLA 67-58. Not a great win for Tennessee. UCLA definitely gave Tennessee a little bit, for the most part, a tough game. So, yeah, Tennessee in their first 2 games, they haven't really had a big convincing win just yet, but they've been playing really good defense in the first 2 games. That's the reason why they keep winning their first 2. That's the reason why they won their first 2 tournament games. So that is the final scores from the round of 32 games on Saturday. We now go to the 8 games on Sunday. Before we get to that, though, what was your favorite game of that Saturday of the round of 32? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, so yesterday we had 8 games as well. We had Florida defeating UConn. This was probably the best game maybe of the round of 32 on that Sunday. We have Florida defeat UConn 77-75, so it won't be a three-peat there for UConn. I was kind of surprised about this game. Maybe I wasn't surprised, because UConn does have a really good underrated team, but the one thing I saw for UConn, they just didn't have any depth on that roster. I mean, they did have depth. They do got some really good players, but they just don't really have that big guy in the paint to do some damage, just like, with Florida. Now, Florida did miss a lot of free throws in this game. That was the weakness of this Florida team, but they were able to make threes late in this game. At one time, I thought Florida was going to lose this game, but they were able to win it. So, yeah, Florida barely able to escape this game, so I wasn't really surprised that UConn came out competitive. But, the fact that they almost just beat Florida here, it would have been probably the biggest upset in March Madness so far. So, yeah, the number 1 seed does survive. They do advance to the Sweet 16. Florida gets the win 77-75 over UConn, the 2-time reigning national champions. Let me get some water here. All right, so we move on to the next game. We got Duke and Baylor. The Blue Devils, 89, Baylor 66. For the most part, in the first few minutes of the game, Baylor was kind of right there with Duke, but the Blue Devils did show us how talented they are. You see how dangerous Cooper Flagg is, and then just how dangerous this Duke team is. Now, the ACC, it's down to Duke. There's not any other ACC team that's going to be really able to go to the Final Four, because all those ACC teams that were in this tournament, they got eliminated in the first round. North Carolina does go down to Ole Miss. That one did surprise me a little bit because I didn't really have confidence with Ole Miss. And then the other team that was able to go down was Clemson, and then also Louisville. So 3 ACC teams were eliminated in that first round of the round of 64. So it's now down to Duke to represent the ACC, and Duke does look like a team they have to beat. So yeah, Duke definitely took care of business against Baylor. They did pull away in the second half, and they were able to win it 89-66. Kentucky defeated Illinois 84-75. Kentucky played great defense in this game. I was really happy as a Kentucky fan myself to get this victory, but a lot of people were nervous going into this game against Illinois. I was not nervous a little bit, but Illinois is a decent team. They're a solid team. They got plenty of talent on that roster, and they look like they could be a dangerous team in the Big Ten next year. They could also be a top 25 team as well. But yeah, Kentucky with their defense and with the help of Lamont Butler in there. Lamont Butler has been battling with some shoulder injuries over the course of the season, but he was able to come in there and provide a spark for them. And then also, Colin Chandler was really impressive, and I thought Kobe Brea was just unstoppable. He hit some big threes in this game. And I know a lot of people are saying that Amari Williams could be better. Look, Amari Williams is a little bit better in my opinion, but he does miss a lot of layups. He's going to have to do something about that. But yeah, his passing game is definitely off the charts. As a big man, that's really an amazing thing to do, is pass the ball around. So yeah, Kentucky's defense, again, just won them this game. They forced the turnovers they had to on Illinois, and that's how Kentucky won the game 84-75. So for the first time ever, Kentucky in the Sweet 16 since 2019, which I'll get to that matchup in just a moment that they're playing. Alabama defeated St. Mary's 80-66, so Alabama took care of business there. They had a much better game compared to the Robert Morris game. Maryland defeated Colorado State 72-71. This was probably also the best game of that round of 32 matchups there from yesterday. Maryland defeated Colorado State on a buzzer beater. Now the question is, did Maryland's player travel on this play? Maybe he did, maybe he did not, but either way, it's a good win for the Terrapins. Colorado State probably would have been that Cinderella team if they would have won this game, but they were not able to. So Maryland defeated Colorado State 72-71. But how about this, though? Ole Miss defeating Iowa State 91-78. And like I mentioned earlier, I didn't really have a lot of confidence with the Rebels. They're a really well-coached team, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like when they went into this stage here in the NCAA tournament, I feel like they were going to have a lot of nerves in that first round game against North Carolina. Maybe they did have a little bit of nerves in that first few minutes, but they started off really good against North Carolina. But at the same time, this is just a really good Ole Miss team. They're kind of proving to us they can compete with the Power 4 teams and like those top teams in the country. And this coaching staff is the reason why they're winning, and they're also getting that motivation as well. So yeah, Ole Miss defeating Iowa State 91-78. Michigan State defeated New Mexico 71-63. So a close game there for the Spartans, but they do move on to the Sweet 16. And then the final game from yesterday was Oregon and Arizona. Arizona able to edge out Oregon 87-83. So yeah, a close game there between the Big 10 and the Big 12. So the SEC and the Big 12 had definitely dominated in the first 2 rounds. I mean, I know there were some close games, but there are I feel like there's 5 Big 12 teams. I can't remember how many exactly Big 12 teams are, but there are 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16, which is really unbelievable, especially for March Madness. I mean, the Final Four could be all SEC teams. Like the 4 teams, it feels like an SEC tournament again. Could that happen? We don't really know, but that's just crazy that there is 7 SEC teams in this tournament. And, I'm telling you, the SEC definitely owns college basketball right now. I know the SEC, they've had their fair share of, losses to, some other conference teams. But, yeah, the SEC definitely owns college basketball right now. And which team do you feel like is the surprise out of those SEC teams? To me, I think it's Ole Miss. I mean, I think Arkansas, I kind of expected them to probably do what they did, but I had them going out in the first round, so I didn't expect Arkansas to make it to the Sweet 16, which we'll get to the matchups in just a moment. But, yeah, that's all the, final scores from the round of 64 and also the round of 32. Again, we got the Sweet 16 coming up this week, starting on Thursday, then continuing on Friday. We got 4 games on Thursday and then 4 games on Friday. And then it's going to conclude with the Elite 8 games on Saturday. We have a couple of games on Saturday, and then Sunday also a couple of games. And whoever wins those Elite 8 games is officially in the Final Four next weekend. So, again, what was the best, game out of the round of 64 and the round of 32? Which upset do you think was the most shocking? Again, there weren't a lot of big upsets. I mean, in the round of 32, you had Iowa State going down. That was obviously a bad pick for me because I had Iowa State going to the Final Four and winning the region. That's what I'm going to get to here in just a moment, my updated bracket. So yeah, again, just talk to me. Which game just surprised you a lot? Which game do you feel like could have been a big upset to happen, and also which game do you feel like was the most fun to watch in those first and second rounds? Let me move this out of the way. And also, as a Kentucky fan, I'm really proud that Kentucky is going back to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2019. And just think about the job that Coach Pope has done. First year, had a lot of pressure on him to bring Kentucky back to where it used to be in their glory days. And I think he's done that. He's had his fair share of losses, but the SEC is one of the toughest conferences to play in. He got through it pretty well, in my opinion. There were some good games and some bad games, but this team that he brought in, it's got to be one of the best teams that he's had, not as a coach, but, this is going to be one of the best teams that he's had in Kentucky history, that will be definitely remembered. So I'll get to the matchups in just a moment for the Sweet 16. All right, so we're going to go through my updated bracket. Let me pull up my graphics here. All right, so there it is. Let me get my face cam in here as well. And I'm going to just put myself over here. All right, so the South region, I didn't really do that well, to be honest, in the South region. Of course, I had Auburn advancing all the way to the Sweet 16. That's no surprise there. Now, I had Louisville defeating Creighton in the first round. That was obviously a bad pick. And like I mentioned earlier, I think Louisville got really a bad spot here in this tournament. I mean, either way, if they were able to beat Creighton, they had to play Auburn in the next round. And Auburn did mention they wanted to play Louisville in the second round, which really is kind of weird to me. But, yeah, Creighton is a really solid team. They were able to beat Louisville there, so that was definitely a big X there for me. I got Texas A&M right to defeat Yale. Michigan, I got them right. I got them all the way going to the Sweet 16, and that's exactly what they did. Michigan State, I got them going to the Sweet 16 as well. Got that one right. New Mexico, they proved me wrong there. They defeated Marquette, so I had Marquette going to the second round to face Michigan State. That obviously did not happen. So, yeah, I got that one wrong there. And then Iowa State, I had them going all the way to the Final Four. So that was a bad pick there. I should know better to not really choose like a a top 4 team to at least go to the, maybe the Final Four perhaps. But yeah, Iowa State was definitely a bad pick. I got their first round game right, but it got it wrong in the second round, and then definitely in the third round. Again, they lost to Ole Miss, 91-78. And then I got Ole Miss wrong. I got North Carolina wrong to go to the second round. Yeah, Ole Miss has definitely proven me wrong in the first 2 games that they played against North Carolina and Iowa State. They were definitely more impressive, though, in the second round game against Iowa State, in my opinion. I think in the first round against North Carolina, it was their kind of first real test, and maybe they got used to it, and they kind of want to have a better game against Iowa State, and that's exactly what they did. So in the South region, I really didn't do that. I mean, I kind of did a little bit bad. I did choose Iowa State to go to the Final Four. Again, that was really a bad pick, in my opinion, for me. I just had a lot of confidence in Iowa State. I feel like they're just really well coached, but in that Ole Miss game, they just didn't look like they were ready to go. So, yeah, I had Auburn meeting Iowa State in the South region, and then I had Iowa State defeating Auburn in the region championship, but that's obviously not going to happen. So, yeah, tough loss there for Iowa State. But, how did you guys do in the South region? Let me know. All right, so that is what I did in the South region. Let's now take a look at the East region. So in the East region, I had Duke defeating Mount St. I had Duke beating Mount St. Mary's. They did just that. So I had Duke going all the way to the Sweet 16. Got that one right. I had Baylor losing to Mississippi State in the first round. Definitely was a close game against 75-72. Baylor won. So yeah, Baylor definitely proved me wrong there. I really trusted Mississippi State a lot. Again, they're a really well-coached team, but maybe they were just nervous. Maybe they were nervous going into this tournament. I really don't know, because you don't really know how well prepared these teams are. I mean, you just don't really know when you get into the tournament. So, yeah, Baylor defeating Mississippi State there. I got Arizona right here to go to the second round, but look at this, though. I had Liberty going all the way to the Sweet 16 as the Cinderella team. That was honestly a really, really bad pick. It's probably far worse than the Iowa State pick, in my opinion. So, yeah, Liberty losing to Oregon in a blowout there. I think it was like 80-something to like 52 if I mentioned it earlier. So, yeah, Oregon definitely really proved me wrong in this one. Again, just not a lot of big upsets happened in the first round. That's just how it was throughout the first round games. There was just not a lot of upsets. Again, we did see some upsets happen, but they were just not quite big. A top 4 team did not lose in the first round, maybe except for, a top 4 team we'll get to later on. But, yeah, Oregon definitely defeated my Cinderella team there in Liberty. Again, I had the, Liberty going all the way to the Sweet 16. That was definitely a bad pick there and a bad prediction. Then on the other side, I had Alabama going all the way to the Sweet 16. That's what they did. St. Mary's, again, I was really close to picking Vanderbilt to win that game, but decided to go with St. Mary's at the end of the day. So yeah, St. Mary's defeated Vanderbilt, got that game right. I had BYU going all the way to the Sweet 16, got that one right, so I was really correct on that one. Wisconsin, defeated Montana. I had them going to the second round. BYU defeated VCU, and then I had BYU beating Wisconsin in the second round, and that's what they did. So yeah, tough loss there for Wisconsin. Again, a close game between those two teams there in the second round, 91-89. Again, BYU won this game. So yeah, in the East region, I didn't do really too bad. Mississippi State definitely, I could have choose Baylor there, but decided to go with the well-coached team in Mississippi State, but obviously Baylor was definitely better. And then Liberty, again, that was just a stupid pick there. Liberty, was my Cinderella team that probably wanted to make it to the Sweet 16, but that just did not happen. So, yeah, Liberty just was not really close at all to make it to the Sweet 16. So, yeah, the East region, I did get a couple of games wrong, but I didn't really do too bad for the most part. I still got Duke and Alabama in the regional final. We'll see if Duke can get their win. It will kind of be the first real tough test here for Duke, in my opinion. Alabama, we'll see what they do against BYU. This is probably going to be the toughest game for Alabama that they've played so far in the tournament. I know the Robert Morris game looks like it was close, but they haven't played like a Power 4 team yet, so we'll see if Alabama can do that. But yeah, that's what my bracket looks like in the South region so far. Then we go to the West region. So in the West region, I had Florida advancing all the way to the Sweet 16. That's what they will do. They are playing in the Sweet 16 this weekend. UConn, I had them beating Oklahoma, got that game right, and then I have Florida beating UConn in that second round, so I got that one right as well. Maryland, I had them going all the way to the second round, but they went to the Sweet 16, so yeah, maybe it doesn't surprise me that Maryland defeated, not defeated, but maybe it does surprise me that Maryland is going to the Sweet 16. But Grand Canyon, a lot of people were kind of picking, Grand Canyon to win this game. I did not, so I picked the Terrapins to beat Grand Canyon. I was kind of close to picking them, but maybe not quite close. And then we had Memphis going down to Colorado State. This was one of those other upsets that happened. Colorado State definitely proved me wrong in this game. Memphis, I had them going all the way to the Sweet 16 for a matchup with Florida. That was also kind of a bad pick, but it's not definitely worse. It's not definitely worser than the Liberty one. I think Liberty was definitely the stupidest pick that I ever made. Maybe also Iowa State was a stupid pick as well, but, Memphis again, I had them going to the Sweet 16. That was also kind of a bad pick in my opinion. But, yeah, Florida, I had them going all the way to the Elite Eight and then also winning this region. So I got them going to the Final Four, which I'll talk about later on. I had St. John's defeating Omaha in the first round, got that game right, but I was way wrong on Arkansas and Kansas. Yeah, that was really a bad pick there. That was also kind of a stupid pick here to go with the Jayhawks again. We did figure out that the Jayhawks were definitely overrated. They lost this game 79-72. It was a close game, but I just feel like every time that the Jayhawks would go on a run, Arkansas would make a run of their own. So, yeah, Arkansas definitely that Cinderella team. They also defeated St. John's in the second round. I had St. John's going to the Sweet 16. That obviously is not going to happen. And like I mentioned earlier, St. John's only shot like 27% from the field against Arkansas. So, yeah, that was a bad pick there as well to go with Kansas instead of Arkansas. I don't know if I would have still picked, Arkansas to beat St. John's. Maybe I could have, but I really don't know. I should have probably picked the Razorbacks, though, to win the first round. Texas Tech, I had them going all the way to the Sweet 16 as well. They are doing just that. They defeated UNC Wilmington and then also Drake. Now, I had Drake upsetting Missouri. I mentioned this earlier. I was not shocked that Drake beat Missouri in the first round. Maybe you're probably shocked because this is probably the biggest upset in this region, but I don't think it's definitely the biggest upset in this region. I think definitely Memphis going out in the first round to Colorado State definitely shocked me. Maybe it did not shock you, but it definitely did shock me that Memphis went down. So, yeah, in the West region, I also kind of did the same thing. Maybe got a couple of games wrong, and then I got St. John's wrong in the second round game to Arkansas. I was kind of expecting to face Kansas, but yeah, St. John's definitely proved me wrong. St. John's actually lost to the second round. So Arkansas is that Cinderella team. They're the only double-digit seed to get to the Sweet 16. So yeah, that is what happened in the West region. So let's now move on to the last region, and it's the Midwest. So in the Midwest, I have Houston going all the way to the Sweet 16. They did just that. Gonzaga, I had them beating Georgia, but losing to Houston. Got that one right. Now, Purdue, I had them going out in the second round to Clemson, and that was also a stupid pick there. Maybe this is worse than the Liberty one. I think probably Clemson is the stupidest pick more than Liberty is. Clemson, losing to McNeese in the first round again. They, like I mentioned, they were held to 13 points in the first half. Yeah, that is just crazy to only score 13 points in the first half of a game. Yeah, that's just not going to get it done if you're a Clemson fan. And I'm kind of surprised that Clemson's coach maybe didn't get fired for this, but Clemson's definitely had some good years and some bad years, but I expected Clemson to get to the Sweet 16. That obviously did not happen. On the other side, I expected Tennessee to get to the Sweet 16, and that's exactly what happened. Now, Utah State went out in the first round. That really did surprise me there. UCLA, again, I haven't watched them a lot this year in basketball, and UCLA definitely proved me wrong in that game, but then they lost to Tennessee. And then Kentucky, they're in the Sweet 16 as well, so I expected that as well here for the Wildcats. They defeated Chory in the first round, 76-57, and then Illinois in the second round, 84-75. So, yeah, Kentucky has definitely won their games by playing good defense, and then same thing with Tennessee. So, yeah, that is my updated bracket. In the Midwest region, I didn't do too bad. I had the one game wrong there with UCLA and Utah State, but that Clemson pick was definitely a lot worser now than I think Liberty. Again, Liberty was my Cinderella team, but Clemson was definitely a team that I expected to get to the Sweet 16. But yeah, they just were not ready, and I feel like the ACC was definitely overrated in my opinion. So yeah, that's my updated bracket. What do you guys think about my updated bracket? And then also, what does your bracket look like? I want to know. We'll get to our next topic here in just a moment. If you are on this stream right now, hit like and subscribe to my stream. And also subscribe for future videos in the future. All right, so we got 2 more topics to do, and then we'll be done with this stream. So the next topic we're going to get into is we're going to get into the teams that have been eliminated from the tournament, and I'll give you my thoughts of who I think the biggest shocker is to go down in this tournament. So yeah, who's eliminated from this tournament as we go into Sweet 16 time. All right, so let me get this out of the way. All right, starting with the South region, the teams that have been eliminated are Alabama State, Louisville, Yale, UC San Diego, Bryant, St. Francis, Marquette, Lipscomb, North Carolina, Texas A&M, Creighton, San Diego State, Iowa State, Texas A&M, and New Mexico. So these are all the teams that have been eliminated in the South region. Alabama State losing in the first round to Auburn. Louisville lost in the first round to Creighton. Yale lost to Texas A&M. UC San Diego lost to Michigan. Bryant lost to Michigan State. St. Francis lost in the first 4 game to Alabama State. Marquette lost in the first round to New Mexico. Lipscomb lost in the first round to Iowa State. North Carolina lost to Ole Miss in the first round. Texas A&M lost in the second round to Michigan. Creighton lost in the second round to Auburn. San Diego State lost in the first 4 game against North Carolina. Then Iowa State, they lost in the second round to Ole Miss. Texas A&M, I have Texas A&M in there twice. I don't know why I do, but I already mentioned that. They lost to Michigan in the second round, and then New Mexico lost to Michigan State in the second round. So which teams right here on this list really is surprising to be eliminated? Well, I think the biggest surprise is definitely Iowa State. That's definitely the biggest surprise in my opinion because I had them going to the Final Four, obviously. Maybe Louisville's also a big surprise, but maybe not, because Creighton definitely was a solid team to begin with. Texas A&M, maybe that's a big shock to you as well, but again, Michigan's very underrated in my opinion. But yeah, Iowa State, that's definitely the biggest surprise here. So again, which team do you think is the most surprising to go out here in the South region after losing in the round of either the 64 or 32? Again, I think Iowa State going out in the second round, to Ole Miss, that definitely was the biggest surprise in my opinion. All right, let's now move on to the next region, and it's the East. So in the East region, the teams that have been eliminated are Montana. Montana was eliminated in the first round. I'll get to that in just a moment. Montana, VCU, Mississippi State, Akron, Liberty, American University, Robert Morris, Mount St. Mary's, Vanderbilt, Baylor, St. Mary's, Wisconsin, and Oregon. So these are all the teams that have been eliminated in the East region. Montana, they went out in the first round to Wisconsin. VCU went down to BYU in the first round. Mississippi State was eliminated by Baylor in the first round. Akron losing to Arizona in the first round. Liberty losing to Oregon in the first round. American University losing in the first four to Mount St. Mary's. Robert Morris went down to Alabama in the first round. Mount St. Mary's went down to Duke in the first round. Vanderbilt went down to St. Mary's in the first round. Baylor went down in the second round to Duke. St. Mary's went down in the second round to Alabama. Wisconsin went down in the second round to BYU. And then Oregon lost in the second round to Arizona. So which team is the most surprising to you in this region to be eliminated? I think it has to be probably, I don't know, out of this region, I don't think there's definitely a big surprise here. Maybe it's Wisconsin, maybe it could be Oregon, but maybe Wisconsin, because they were probably the runner-up. They were the runner-ups in the Big Ten championship, but in this region, there's just not really a lot of great teams in this region. You got Duke, who's a great team, don't get me wrong, and then same thing with Arizona, but yeah, Oregon and Wisconsin were also two good teams. So maybe Wisconsin is definitely a big shock because they did lose to a very underrated Ole Miss team. They got, or actually not Wisconsin, they got eliminated by BYU, but it was a close game. I was talking about the Iowa State and Ole Miss game earlier, and I talked about Iowa State being the most surprised team to be eliminated from that region. So yeah, I would say probably Wisconsin is definitely the surprise in my opinion. Maybe it's also Oregon. You can make your comments down below. Who you think is the biggest elimination and the biggest surprise team to go out in this region. But yeah, I think it's Wisconsin. I'm going to go with the Badgers here in this region as the biggest surprise team to go down. But I wasn't surprised, maybe because, BYU I had, beating Wisconsin in the second round. So yeah, I don't think any teams right here in this region are definitely a big surprise in my opinion. Let's now go on to the next region, and that is going to be the West. So we do have Kansas, Norfolk State, Oklahoma, Grand Canyon, Memphis, Colorado State, Omaha, UNC Wilmington, Missouri, Drake, UConn, and St. John's. So these are all the teams that have been eliminated from the West region. Which team do you think is the surprise team to go out here in either in the round of 32 or the round of 64? Kansas went down to Arkansas in the first round. Norfolk State, they lost to Florida in the first round. Oklahoma lost to UConn in the first round. Grand Canyon, they went down to Maryland in the first round. Memphis lost to Colorado State in the first round, and then Colorado State went down to Maryland in the second round. Then Omaha, they went down to St. John's in the first round. UNC Wilmington, they went down in the first round to Texas Tech. Missouri went down to Drake in the first round, and then Drake went down to Texas Tech in the second round. UConn went down to Florida in the second round, and then St. John's went out in the second round to Arkansas. I would say St. John's is a big surprise. maybe pretty small school. We don't know if they're on the level of those like Power 4 teams. And it did kind of show in the game against Arkansas. Again, Arkansas was definitely a much faster team than St. John's. And again, when Coach Calipari, he just knows Rick Pitino really well and what system he runs. So maybe I'm not too surprised that St. John's went out. I mentioned earlier that Memphis was definitely the big surprise in my opinion. I was kind of expecting the Tigers to go on a run to the Sweet 16, but they obviously got knocked out in the first round to Colorado State. I don't really think Kansas is a big surprise because the Jayhawks were definitely overrated in my opinion. So yeah, which teams in this region do you feel like was the biggest surprise? In my opinion, I think it's Memphis. I would say probably Missouri as well, but I did pick Drake to beat Missouri in that first round. St. John's, maybe it's also another surprise, but like I mentioned, maybe I'm not shocked that St. John's lost to Arkansas. But I would say Memphis is probably the biggest surprise in my opinion in this region. And then we go on to the last region, and that's going to be the Midwest. So in the Midwest, the teams that have been eliminated, SIU, Edwardsville, Georgia, High Point, Clemson, Utah State, UCLA, Texas, McNeese, Xavier, Watford, Gonzaga, Troy, and Illinois. So SIU Edwardsville went out in the first round to Houston. Georgia went out in the first round to Gonzaga. High Point went out in the first round to Purdue. Clemson got knocked out in the first round to McNeese. Utah State got knocked out in the first round to UCLA. UCLA got knocked out in the second round to Tennessee. Texas got knocked out in the first four against Xavier. McNeese, they got knocked out in the second round to Purdue. Xavier, they got knocked out in the first round to Illinois. Wofford got knocked out in the first round to Tennessee. Gonzaga, they got knocked out in the second round to Houston. And then Troy got knocked out in the first round to Kentucky. And then same thing with Illinois. Also got knocked out in the second round, though, to Kentucky. So the biggest surprise, in my opinion, going out in this region, maybe Illinois. I mean, I really don't know. Maybe Clemson, because they're a 5 seed, but maybe Clemson's just overrated. That's probably the reason why they lost that game. They were probably just not ready. Yeah, I think Illinois probably is the surprise team, but I'm going to have to say maybe Clemson more than Illinois because I think this is a really solid Illinois team. But, yeah, I'm going to have to probably say Clemson was the biggest surprise in my opinion because I had this team going all the way to the Sweet 16. So who do you think was the biggest surprise team to go out here in the Midwest region? Again, I want to know your thoughts about all the teams that you feel like were the biggest surprise to go out in every region. In the South region, I did mention that Iowa State was the biggest surprise. The East region was very tough. I think it was probably Wisconsin that would definitely be that surprise in my opinion. And then the other region, let me take a look at it here. I can't really see it. That's the West region. Again, the biggest surprise, in my opinion, in the West region was probably Memphis. So, and then the Midwest, I did mention it was Clemson. Yeah, Clemson. I keep forgetting what teams I said, but yeah, those 4 teams, I think they were all the biggest surprise team to go out in this tournament. Again, I think it was in the South region, it was Iowa State because I had them going to the Final Four. The East region was just so tough to pick because I had BYU beating Wisconsin. So I would say Wisconsin is probably the biggest surprise. And then in the West region, it's definitely going to be, of course, Memphis. And then in the Midwest, it's definitely going to be Clemson. So yeah, those are all the teams that have been eliminated from the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So let me go ahead and close this out. Where is it here? There it is. All right, let me pull my face cam back to the original spot. All right, we'll get into our last topic here. We're going to preview the Sweet 16 matchups coming up for Thursday and Friday. And maybe we'll talk about the Elite Eight in just a moment as well. Hope you guys are enjoying the stream, and you can watch this later as well when it's uploaded. All right, so we're ready to get into our last topic of this live stream. We've covered all the round of 64 and round of 32 games. We have shown you my updated bracket, what I got wrong and what I got right, and then we showed all the teams that have been eliminated and gave, the most surprised team that was eliminated in those games. So, let's go ahead and get into the Sweet 16 matchups. The Sweet 16 games will be held on Thursday and Friday. We got 4 games coming up on Thursday, and then Friday we got 4 games as well. Then the Elite Eight games will be held on Saturday and Sunday. So the Elite Eight does tell us which teams will go to the Final Four, and the Sweet 16 will tell us which teams are going to make the Elite Eight. So we'll start with this first game here. It's going to be in the, let me pull this up. It is going to be in the East region. It's going to be BYU versus Alabama in the East region. This will be the first game to tip off on that Thursday night at 7:09 p.m. Eastern Time. So BYU is the 6th seed. Alabama is the number 2 seed in this region. BYU coming off, that, crazy game against Wisconsin, able to, win the game 91-89. BYU's kind of had a couple of tough games, a couple of close losses in their first 2 games in the tournament. They defeated VCU 80-71, and then again, like I mentioned, Wisconsin 91-89. So, yeah, BYU has already, played like some tough competition. While on the other side for Alabama, they haven't really played a lot of great teams just yet. This will definitely be their toughest test that they'll go up against here against this BYU Cougar team. Alabama, though, their first 2 games, they've defeated Robert Morris, a pretty solid Robert Morris team, 90-81. And then in the second round, they had a much better game against St. Mary's, 80-66. So, Alabama just hasn't really played anybody just yet. But I think this will be their first real test. I think this is a really high-scoring game. I think, both offenses are pretty, good on both ends of the floor. Defensively, who you would give the advantage to, I would probably say Alabama. Maybe they're a little bit faster than BYU, but this is a very underrated BYU team. They represent the Big 12 pretty well. And, the SEC definitely has a lot to prove. They have 7 teams in the Sweet 16. There's a good possible chance that we could see a lot of SEC teams go out this weekend. But, Alabama, I would probably give the advantage to them on the defense. I mean, offensively, it's pretty even between these 2 teams. They have both scored a lot of points in their first 2 games of the tournament. But, Alabama, I would give them the edge on defense. Again, offensively, it's just hard to tell. So, if I was going to make a prediction on this one, I would definitely go with Alabama. So, I'm going to go with the Tide here. I kind of trust them a little bit more. Alabama, I think, will advance to play, either Duke or Arizona. We'll get to that matchup here in just a moment. What's your prediction for this game? BYU or Alabama? Put it down in the chat below. This game will be Thursday at 7:09 p.m. Eastern Time in the East region for the Sweet 16. So let's now go on to the next game. Next up, we got Maryland versus Florida in the West region at 7:39 on Thursday. Maryland, the number 4 seed out of the Big Ten. Florida, the number 1 seed out of the SEC. Maryland coming off a close game against Colorado State. They won a game at the buzzer against the Rams. They won 72-71. They took care of business in their first game against Grand Canyon. So which Maryland team are we going to get here? Is it the team that's going to be kind of flat here against Colorado State, or will it be the team that kind of showed up against Grand Canyon? On the other side for Florida, they took care of business against Norfolk State in the first round, and then second round it was a close game against the two-time reigning defending national champions in UConn. Yeah, for Florida, they got to hit the three-point shot in this game in order to kind of win this one, because they did struggle from the field. In the second half, they really struggled from the free throw line. They also got to hit free throws. They got to grab rebounds because they gave up so many offensive rebounds to UConn in that game. If you watch that entire game, it feels like UConn was grabbing, 50-50 rebounds, and it just went their way. So I think that's going to be the key there for Florida. They're going to have to just rebound the ball. And then for Maryland, what do they got to do? They just got to play consistent. That's all I can really say about the Terrapins, because I don't really know much about this team, but they do have a pretty good shot here to pull off the upset. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to go with Florida in this one. I think they're going to probably win it by, not even double digits, though. I think Maryland can keep this, game close throughout the entire night and everything, but I do like Florida's depth on this, team. That's the reason why I did pick them to win a national championship this year. It's just because of the depth that they have on their roster. Now, again, they have to hit that three-point shot in order to win this game, and they also got to, just play good defense and box out and not allow offensive rebounds, and they got to hit free throws. So I think Florida does take care of that. They get the game plan right, and Florida does win this one. Again, this one will be at 7:39 Eastern Time on Thursday night. This is the West region, so the winner does play. Who is in the West region? I think it's the winner of either Arkansas or I'll get to that later on. But yeah, Florida and Maryland here in the West region on Thursday night. Let's now go on to the next game. Next up, we have Arizona versus Duke, a Big 12 versus ACC matchup in the East region. This one will be on Thursday at 9:39, so a late game here between these two teams. Arizona, they're the number 4 seed. Duke is the number 1 seed. Duke has kind of proven to us they've been pretty dominant in the first 2 games, but I think this will be their toughest test up to date yet, because Duke definitely has to prove to us that they are definitely a number 1 seed in this tournament. They can't just go in there and pretty much, play around in this one. So yeah, the Blue Devils, I think, will have a pretty tough time in this game. This is a very underrated Arizona team. This is the team that lost to Houston in the Big 12 championship. They do have a pretty good shot here to pull off the upset, in my opinion. Maybe Duke has got the talent advantage, but Arizona definitely has very underrated players on their rosters. So I wouldn't be surprised here if the Wildcats won this game, but I got to go with Duke here. Again, I think Duke has kind of, just been dangerous. It's kind of tough to predict against them because of how good they've looked, in the postseason. They won the ACC championship without Cooper Flagg, but with him in there, that's just going to make it really tough here for Arizona to win this game. But I think it will be close. This will be the closest game that Duke has had so far in this tournament, and yeah, they'll definitely win it by not, by a lot, though. I think it's only going to be about maybe 9 or 8 points, somewhere in that particular point range. So, yeah, got to go with the Blue Devils here. This game will be on Thursday at 9:39. Again, we got 4 games coming up on Thursday, and then Friday we got 4 games as well. So, yeah, the East region, the winner of this game right here between Arizona and Duke, they will play the winner of either Alabama or BYU in the regional final to determine to go to the Final Four and represent the East. So, yeah, Duke and Arizona, this one will be on Thursday at 9:39. Again, I'm going to go with Duke in that game. but not by a lot. It's going to be a close game in my opinion. All right, in the Midwest region, we have Arkansas taking on Texas Tech. This is actually the West region. My bad. But yeah, in the West region, Arkansas taking on Texas Tech. This will be the last game on Thursday to tip off at 10:09 p.m., so a really late tip-off here between these two teams. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Arkansas has been that Cinderella team in my opinion. They're the only double-digit seed to be in the Sweet 16. But Texas Tech on the other side, very underrated team out of the Big 12. Arkansas, coming off that win over Kansas, 79-72, then coming off that big upset over St. John's. Really wouldn't call it an upset, though, because St. John's definitely was not ready to play in that game, and Arkansas definitely was the more faster team. And there's also a rumor out there that Adu Thiero could be probably back for this game. And just think about it. If Arkansas has a full roster going into this game, this is going to be a tough matchup here for Texas Tech. But even though without Thiero, they can still definitely win this game. And I wouldn't be surprised here if Arkansas definitely pulled off the upset. But yeah, Texas Tech, I think, is going to come in here pretty angry. They're going to give Arkansas definitely a pretty tough game. I got to go with Texas Tech in this one. I would go with Arkansas just because of how they played in the first two games, but I kind of trust the Red Raiders a little bit more. I do trust their coaching staff. And I know Texas Tech is coming off a little bit of closer wins. They definitely had a better game against Drake, but they definitely weren't that impressive in the first round against UNC Wilmington. But yeah, Texas Tech here, I think they take advantage of, Arkansas' speed. They, waste the clock down. They try to, slow Arkansas's offense down a little bit. So I got Texas Tech winning this game. I'm going to say by double digits here. I think they probably, just slow the game down. It's probably going to be a low-scoring, maybe defensive game because, again, Texas Tech will slow the game down. But got to go with the Red Raiders in this one. So I'm going to pick the Red Raiders to move on to the regional final. The next game, we got Michigan State and Ole Miss in the South region. The winner of this game will either take on Auburn or Michigan in the South Regional Final. Boy, this is a tough one here. Ole Miss is coming off a couple of great wins in the first two games of the tournament. They are coming off that big win over Iowa State, 91-78. And then on the other side, they defeated North Carolina, 71-64. That was a closer game, but having to beat a number 3 seed in Iowa State, the team that I picked to go to the Final Four, yeah, that's a great win there for Ole Miss. Michigan State on the other side, they're coming off wins over Bryant and then also the win over New Mexico. So Michigan State really hasn't played a great team as of right now. New Mexico is not a bad team. They're like a solid team and a decent team, but Michigan State is still quite the better team in that game. But this one will be on Friday at 7:09. It's the first game to tip off on that Friday. Again, the winner of this game will play Auburn or Michigan. And I got to tell you, this is a tough one. Again, I've been back and forth on this game. I've been looking at the matchup here between these two teams. They both have really good rosters. Maybe Michigan State is definitely a better team, but this Ole Miss team is definitely going to be out for a big upset here. But I got to go with Michigan State. I think Michigan State is able to edge Ole Miss just barely, but yeah, it's definitely a game that Michigan State definitely has to win. I think there's a lot of pressure on this team. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on Ole Miss, though. Win or lose, they definitely have a season to be proud of, but there's definitely a lot of pressure here on Michigan State, in my opinion, because Michigan State hasn't been to the Elite Eight in quite a few years. So, yeah, the Spartans, I got to go with them in this one. But I wouldn't be surprised here if we saw an upset in this one. Ole Miss upsetting Michigan State, that would definitely not shock me. And there's also a possibility that we could see Auburn versus Ole Miss, an SEC Elite Eight showdown in the regional final. So yeah, Michigan State, I'm going to go with them though in this Sweet 16 South Regional or the South Region semifinal. But the next game is definitely probably going to be the best game of the Sweet 16 in my opinion. And yes, it's definitely my favorite team. Kentucky and Tennessee in the Midwest region semifinals, Friday at 7:39 p.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be a good one, folks. I got to tell you, it's going to be a good one. Kentucky, definitely maybe has a statement to make in order to make it to the Elite Eight. But for Tennessee, there's a lot of pressure here on the Vols because they lost to Kentucky in the first two matchups of the regular season, one in January and then one in February. At Thompson-Boling Arena, Kentucky defeated Tennessee 78-73 in January, and then in February at Rupp, Kentucky defeated Tennessee 75-64, and because it was that defensive effort, and Tennessee did not shoot the ball well in those first two matchups, so yeah, Tennessee is definitely going to be out for blood in this one, and they're going to put their blood, sweat, and tears into this game to get revenge on the Wildcats. Even if Tennessee wins this game, Kentucky is still going to win the series, but I don't think there's a lot of pressure here for Kentucky. I think they probably do have a chance to win this game, but it is hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. We get that. It is hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but it's already happened a lot in college basketball this year. And you saw Alabama beat Kentucky 3 times in a row. I think you also saw Florida beat Alabama 3 times in a row as well. 2 times in the regular season, and then, also in the SEC semifinals of the tournament. So, yeah, this has a chance to probably be the best Sweet 16 matchup of this, Sweet 16 matchups coming up here, and this is definitely going to be a good one. Again, it's the third meeting between these two rivals, Kentucky and Tennessee. This has a chance to be one of the best Sweet 16 matchups coming up this weekend. I got to go with, Kentucky, though, because, again, we've seen a team beat, a team 3 times in a row. And look, I'm a Kentucky fan. I'm not saying that Kentucky is going to win just because I'm a fan of them. I'm saying they're going to win because they played, good defense. And, Tennessee definitely hasn't really been able to take advantage of Kentucky's offense on the defense either. Again, these are 2 teams that have played good defense in the first 2 games of the year. So it's probably going to come down to who has a better defense and who has a better offense at the end of the day. Now, Tennessee has really struggled to handle Kentucky's offense in the first two matchups. So we'll see if they have a statement here to make, going into this matchup against Kentucky. But yeah, Kentucky and Tennessee, this is going to be a good one here in the Midwest region semifinal. Winner of this one will either take on Purdue or Houston in that other semifinal. This game is also going to be in Indianapolis, by the way, so there's going to be a lot of Tennessee and Kentucky fans there for that matchup. All right, next we go back to the South region. We got Michigan and Auburn, number 5 versus number 1 seeded here. It's going to be at 9:39, so it's a pretty late game here for the Auburn Tigers. South region, the winner of this game will either play Maryland and Florida. No, the winner of this game is going to either play Ole Miss or Michigan State in the regional final on, I believe, Sunday. So, yeah, these games are on Friday, which means the Friday games in the Elite Eight will be on Sunday, and then the Thursday games in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight games for them will be on Saturday. But yeah, you look at this Auburn team, 2 games, they've kind of had to pull away late in their games. Not late, but, early in the, second half and everything. Alabama State was kind of right there with Auburn in the first round, for quite a while, but then Auburn just pulled away, won by 20 in that game. So yeah, pretty good win there for Auburn, but the Creighton game, they only won by 12, so that's a difference there in those first 2 games. If Auburn doesn't bring their A game in this one, if they go out there just, playing around a little bit, then yeah, Michigan's going to pull off the upset somehow here. Michigan has already beaten an SEC team in Texas A&M last time out, and they also defeated UNC, Greensboro. So, yeah, Michigan already has that experience of playing an SEC team, but Auburn definitely a much more talented team than Texas A&M. They're definitely going to be really a tough team to beat, but again, I just don't really have a lot of confidence with Auburn. And like I said, I did pick, Auburn. I did actually pick Michigan to win this game. And I'm still going to go with this pick on my bracket. Now, I did say that Kentucky was going to lose to Tennessee as well, but I'm making some picks here and I really don't care about my bracket at this point, so you know what I'm saying. Again, I'm picking Kentucky to beat, Tennessee. I'm changing that pick, and then obviously I'm changing this pick as well, or not changing it. I'm still keeping the pick like I had in the original bracket. But yeah, I got Michigan defeating Auburn here. I think it will be a close game between these two teams. I think it does come down to the wire, but I think Michigan is definitely a team that can finish games pretty well. They finished that game in the Big Ten Championship against Wisconsin pretty well, and they also finished the game correctly in the first round, and then the second game against Texas A&M they were able to pull away. But yeah, this is the winner. This game will either play Arizona or Arizona and Ole Miss and Michigan State. I keep getting mixed up there in the South region, but yeah, the winner of this game will play Michigan State or Ole Miss, so that means we would probably get Michigan State versus Michigan in the South Regional Final. That would be something there, a rematch between those two teams, because Michigan defeated Michigan State in order to eliminate them from the Big Ten tournament. So yeah, that game is at 9:39 on Friday, and then we go to the final Sweet 16 game. It's going to be Purdue versus Houston in the Midwest region semifinal matchup. Purdue obviously has looked good in the first two games of the tournament. I forgot to mention the time for this game. It's going to be at 10:09 p.m., so a really late tip-off here between these two teams. The Boilermakers have looked really good in the first two games. They have been the most consistent team in this tournament, in my opinion, while on the other side for Houston, they're coming off a little bit of a close win against Gonzaga. But they took care of business in their first game, and they were really impressive there against SIU Edwardsville. But which Houston team are we going to get? Is it the Houston team that's going to be able to blow out this Purdue team, or is it going to be the Houston team that was able to edge out Gonzaga? I think it's going to be probably maybe the Gonzaga-Houston team, because I think this is going to be a close game. I wouldn't be shocked here if Purdue did pull off the upset in this one. Again, like I mentioned, Purdue has been the most consistent team in this tournament so far. If they bring that consistency against Houston, then yeah, the Boilermakers are definitely going to go to the Elite Eight in my opinion. Winner of this game will either play Kentucky or Tennessee in the Elite Eight in the regional championship. So yeah, whoever, these two teams will play next, it will definitely be a really good matchup. But I kind of been back and forth on this game as well, but I do like the Cougars here at the end of the day. I think Houston is definitely going to be a tough one here for Purdue to be consistent against, but either way, this will be a close game. I think all Sweet 16 matchups could be really close, and then some of them maybe they're not really that close, to be honest. But yeah, all Sweet 16 games are going to be pretty entertaining to watch. But again, I'm looking forward to this game. It's going to be Kentucky and Tennessee. This is the one I'm looking forward to the most. Again, I'm a Kentucky fan. I'm not just saying it as a fan. I'm just saying this. Third time, going at each other. I mean, if Kentucky can beat Tennessee for the third time in a row, then yeah, that's going to draw a lot of criticism here for Tennessee fans. Tennessee fans definitely would be, really mad about Rick Barnes losing to Kentucky, because you look at Kentucky in the offseason, a new roster, no returning players from last year. I mean, they had to recruit a lot of players in the transfer portal, and they got these really good players. You got Otega Owe, you got, Amari Williams, who's a great rebounding machine. You got also Andrew Carr, who can rebound the ball as well and score. And he can shoot the ball. And then also you got Lamont Butler, which is one of the most talented point guards in the SEC. But Tennessee on the other side, they got players as well. I mean, they have a very talented team. They're just going to have to bring it here against Kentucky, because, again, to lose to Kentucky for the third time in a row, that's just going to be embarrassing here for the Volunteers, to lose to their biggest rival in the SEC like 3 times in a row. But yeah, Tennessee, if they bring their A game and they bring that intensity to Kentucky, then yeah, Tennessee is going to win. But if Kentucky can do what they have done in the first 2 games, play good defense, again, like I said, I think it's going to come down to defenses here for both of these teams. But Kentucky, again, if they play like they did in the first 2 games on defense, then yeah, Kentucky definitely can win this game for the 3rd consecutive time in a row. And just imagine, Kentucky, going to the Elite Eight with first-year head coach Mark Pope. There were so many questions about him coming the head coach. There was so much pressure on him becoming the head coach as well. But I think he's done a nice job. And for Tennessee, again, I think there's a lot more pressure on them in this game than there is Kentucky, because Tennessee, if they don't win this game, that's just going to be embarrassing. But if they win this game and move on to the Elite Eight, that's just going to be a really good sign for next year. So, yeah, Tennessee and Kentucky, this is the one Sweet 16 matchup I'm looking forward to coming up this week. It's going to be on Friday at 7:39. So, yeah, Kentucky and Tennessee. Which Sweet 16 game do you feel like is going to be entertaining? Which game do you feel like is going to be pretty entertaining to watch? And which game do you see coming down in the wire? Which team do you think is going to pull off a big upset? Now, the most likely upset, in my opinion, is Ole Miss upsetting Michigan State. I don't know if Arkansas can beat Texas Tech, but we will see what happens. But we have covered all the topics for today. We looked at the round of 64 and round of 32 final score matchups, and then we take a look at the teams that were eliminated from this tournament. We updated my bracket as well, and then we take a look at the Sweet 16 matchups. If you want to see more live streams of college basketball content, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And also, again, we are heading into Sweet 16 weekend. We also got the Elite Eight on Saturday and Sunday. We'll see who goes to the Final Four on those 2 days, and then we'll get ready for the Final Four in San Antonio next weekend. So that is my live stream. Thank you for joining me here on the channel, and I appreciate you guys for all the support here. Click like and subscribe as always, and always have a great rest of your day, and we'll see who comes out on top in this March Madness tournament for 2025. Good night, everybody.